this stuff. Nobody will teach me what I have to do. And so Prowess is me offering my experience, and experience born from lots of mistakes, unfortunately. But my experience to young men, and giving them a resource to be able to learn those lessons.
Sure. That's phenomenal. And I know as a young man growing up, I was able to spend a lot of time with specifically my father and two other men in a singing group that we were in. And I know that really shaped a lot of who I am, was the time I was able to spend with three older men. The
Right.
next oldest one from me was 7 years older.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next two were about 25 years older.
Yeah, that's great. But, there's just so few young men that have that opportunity anymore. 100 years ago, when a guy was 8 years old, a kid, was 8 or 9 years old, he would be, as soon as he got home from school, he'd be out in the fields working with the men. He'd be out throwing hay or digging post holes or whatever men were doing. He'd be hanging around with the men. And so he got lots of time seeing how men interact and seeing what they do, and kind of getting those lessons taught firsthand. Guys today, they don't get that so much. Their teachers are mostly women. Their Sunday school teachers are mostly women. Even their scout leaders anymore are women, if they're not a transvestite, God forbid. But so they just don't get to spend time around godly men very much. And that's a real tragedy. So this is an attempt to sort of, right the course a little bit.
Sure. Well, I'm sure it'll grow, and I'm sure it'll be appreciated. How do you find the balance between prowess for pride's sake? Like, I want to be good at all these things because I'm a man, and prowess, for the sake of God's glory. Because again, we can get kind of prideful and like, oh, I want to be good at my job because I want to make money. And you kind of talked about that a little bit in your story, but how do you find that balance of prowess for God's glory?
I think we've all seen the guy at the mall that, he's got tattoos all over. He's got the muscle shirt, and he's like swaggering down the hallway, and everybody, you can tell that guy, we see that on TV. Heaven forbid if your kids ever get a glimpse of like ultimate fighting or something, you see this prideful display of arrogant manhood. But what I try to explain in the book Prowess is that in reality, that is the picture of a scared little boy who has built himself a facade of tough guy manhood to try to fool the world into thinking he's got what it takes. And the guys that I have met who are, let's say, SEAL Team 6 operators, or guys from Delta Force, guys who literally definitely have what it takes, and who don't have anything to prove to anybody because they do it every day. Those guys, by and large, don't act that way. Those guys feel free to just be themselves and to be goofy and fun and just enjoy doing what they do. They don't feel the need to go around with a scowl on their face and try to look like a tough guy, because they are tough guys.
Right.
And nobody's gonna tell them otherwise. Right. So I think that's the difference. And that's the picture that I try to present in Prowess, is that, that stallion, that is incredibly powerful, that could, he's so muscular and powerful and everything. He's worthless if he doesn't bridle that, if he doesn't muzzle that, if he doesn't submit it to a higher authority.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I know also in Prowess you mention, and even in, kind of your story, some of the mistakes that you did make and you were maybe on track to make. But you're very honest and forthright in the book about some of those. Why is being honest about those things, first of all, in your book so important, but then for us as men, why is honesty such an integral part?
If I'm only showing you the Facebook version of myself, we know that's kind of what it is. On Facebook, everybody just puts up all the greatest things they're doing and how fun
the highlight reel. Right.
It's a highlight reel of their life. And it's actually depressing for other people, because they know all of the struggles that they're facing, and they just feel like, I'm the only one that's facing this. And so what I have found is that as I have shared the deepest, darkest points of my life, those are the ones that really resonate with people. Those are the ones that people say, wow, that really helped me. Just to know that you went through that and came out the other side, or that, you're even still struggling with these things. It's like you put the filter on, when I put the filter on our internet years ago, and told my sons, all right, look, there's a filter on the internet. And if you guys, are looking at stuff you shouldn't be, I'm going to know about it. And my oldest son was like, what, you don't trust me? And I said, son, I don't trust me.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't trust any of us. We all need this. And that, that shut that argument down in a hurry. I mean, to understand that, look, we all still deal with this stuff. That, I think it just makes it more approachable, makes it more real.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons I like the book of Psalms so much, is David is just so honest and
he's laying it
straightforward
all
about
out
the way
there.
he's thinking. Absolutely. So you talk a lot about the inactivity or the passivity of men, and you travel a lot, you speak a lot. Is it possible to take the call to manhood to a man who's not looking for it? Can you shake a man out of his stupor against his will, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I think so. I've had that happen a lot, actually. Guys who did not think that they had anything wrong with their lives. I give you several examples, really. There's a guy who he was married for about 8 years and thought everything was going great, and came home one day and his wife was gone, and she left a note and said, I can't take this anymore. I'm out of here. And he was like, what? Like, what happened?
Yeah. Wow.
And he picked up the book Making Men and started reading through it, and started just realizing he was not reading through it. He didn't read the book for himself. He was reading through it for his son. Like, I'm going to teach my son how to be a good man, And but as he started going through it, he started saying, wait a minute, I'm deficient here. And as that measuring stick was held up to his own life, he started to see lots of things wrong in his own life. And he started making a list of the things that he wanted to change about himself in the front of the book. When he was done with the book, he sent it, he mailed it to his ex-wife, or not, they were separated. He mailed it to her and said, I just want you to know that everything I've written in the front of this book is about to change. And she wrote back and said, are you serious about that? And he said, absolutely. And she said, okay, I'm coming home then. So I've had story after story about that, where a guy, just doesn't, sometimes it's very hard for us to see the passivity that we wallow in every day, until somebody holds up a mirror in front of us, or not only holds up a mirror, just tells about their own struggles in those areas. Mm-hmm. I know I've seen that a lot, where I know it's easy to see the passivity in other guys. And so I'll notice it in a guy and just be like, gosh, that guy's being so passive. And he doesn't even realize that the reason his kids hate him and his wife resents him is because of his own passivity. And if he would just address that, things would get better in his life. It's easy to see. And then within a day or two, the Holy Spirit will turn that around and kind of stab me in the gut with it, the same thing, and go like, oh yeah, that's okay. That hurts. I guess I need to change some things about my life too.
Sure. One last question, I guess. Two questions. How do attitudes towards manhood, or manhood in general, differ through the different countries that you travel in? You go to a bunch of different places. First of all, is the condition of manhood different? And then are there attitudes towards like what manhood is any different?
That's a really great question. I could write a book about that. The thing that I notice most is that in the United States, we try to defer manhood as long as possible. It's to the point now, I think you can be 26 years old and still be on your parents' health insurance.
Yeah.
In the Bible, in ancient times, almost every culture considered a boy to be a man when he was between 12 and 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And Jesus, in the story where he is, he gets separated from his parents and they find him in the synagogue teaching. If you read that closely, he went like 3 to 5 days on his own in a major metropolitan city at 12 years old. And nobody freaked out. Nobody called Child Protective Services. No, he found a place to sleep and found food to eat and was about his father's business. He was considered to be a man. And in many of the countries where I go, it's not uncommon to find a 13 or 14 or 15-year-old boy who's the head of the household.
Sure.
They are considered to be ready for manhood much earlier than we do in the United States. But I think that's a mistake on our part, because I've found that when you treat a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old like, all right, son, it's time for you to step it up. It's time for you to put away childish things and pick up manly things. Mm-hmm. They are fully capable of doing that, and they want to.
Right.
So my goal with my own sons, and I would tell them flat out, is that I want to give you everything you need to be a full-fledged man by the time you're 12 to 14 years old. Not every young man is the same. Every kid's different, but you can gauge when they're ready. And that means I'm going to teach you to drive. I'm going to teach you to hunt. I'm going to teach you to fix things. I'm going to teach you about the Bible. I'm going to, share with you my own very intimate details of my own failures so that you won't make those mistakes. I think that we do so much to try to shelter our children, and even when they're not children, all the way into their mid-30s at this point, we try so much to shelter kids and don't let them move out of adolescence. And that's a big mistake. Adolescence seems to be the end-all and be-all of American culture now. Even old men want to be adolescents. There's nothing more pitiful than seeing the 50-plus-year-old youth minister that's running around with a little soul patch and got his hair up in a little, little Superman hairdo kind of thing, trying to look like a teenager. I mean, that's
Absolutely.
Sad. That's sad. Yeah. Look, there's a reason God gives us gray hair, and it's a crown of glory for us, and we should be very satisfied if we can live long enough to get gray hair. Because I know a lot of guys that weren't that fortunate. And I think that, we should stop vilifying old age and start respecting it like it once was.
Absolutely. That's good. And then one last thing. This is, I know, a very broad question, but is there, as we leave here, is there one bit of wisdom, whether I'm 31 and if there's an 18-year-old young man listening to this, or a 50-year-old man, is there a bit of wisdom that you would say you would pass along to anyone?
Yeah, to a young man, I would say stop believing the lies that the world is telling you that you're not yet able to take on the mantle of manhood. If you're 18 years old, you're a man. You should be. 100 years ago, an 18-year-old, he could form a family, he could start a business, he could, travel across the country or the world on his own. He could hunt things, kill things, fix things, build things. Today's 18-year-olds can play Halo really well, or play, Fortnite or something,
right,
like children. And that's about it.
Yeah.
If you're 18 years old, get off your butt, leave your house, separate yourself from your mother and father, and go someplace and get out of your comfort zone. Be a man. And stop listening to the world tell you you're not ready yet. That, you got to have your college degree, or, you've got to have a good job, and, you've got to have a house. Look, and don't believe the lie that you've got to be 35 years old and have your career established before you can get married. If you've been fortunate enough to find a woman who isn't made physically ill by the sight of you, and you're ready to accept the call to care for this one daughter of God for the rest of her life with every breath. And that means that you'll provide for her, you'll protect her, and you'll give her affection. That's all. If you're prepared to make that commitment and you're only 18 or 19 years old, then marry the girl. Do it. You think it's going to be easier when you're 35? It's going to be harder. Right. You're going to go through hardship no matter what. Putting two lives together isn't easy. But the world lies to you and tells you that, and now we've got guys that are 40 years old that are having their first children. What a